Okay, so I wanted to give you a little bit of a tutorial on how to figure out the number of wealthy people around a certain area. Um, and the way that I find easiest to do that is to go into the Facebook Ads Manager. So adsmanager.facebook.com. You see that at the top of the screen. And then you go to audiences right here on the left. And that will take you. I was in it, but I'm going to go back through it just to show you every step. Okay, so that will take you here to audiences. And then what you can do is you can create different audiences of people using different criteria. And Facebook has thousands of data points on all of us. Anybody on Facebook? So while a lot of people don't like that, here's where it actually comes in really handy if you're a marketer. Those data points are extremely valuable. And it's not data, like I can't go in and put somebody's name in here and figure out like that particular person. This is just cohorts, right? It's groups of people that Facebook knows about. So what I've done, I'll just take you through, show you what I've done, and then I'll show you how to do this. So I have made audiences that show me top 5% income earners who like horses, okay, that according to Facebook, within 25 miles of a certain city in the US. So the first one I did was Aiken, South Carolina. So I'm going to click on this, and then we'll see this little sidebar opens here. And Aiken, 25 miles, right? So a radius of 25 miles around Aiken, South Carolina. People in the top 5% of income earners who like horses. And the estimated audience size, according to Facebook, is below 1,000 people. So really was actually a lot less than I expected to see. I've never been myself to Aiken, but I did not think that it would be this low of a number. But that's what it is. And, you know, Facebook's not 100% right on everything all the time, but their criteria, their data on people is pretty extremely accurate, I think, typically. So so I would definitely pay a lot of attention to this number and give it a lot of credence. So, okay, so that's Aiken, South Carolina. Let's look at another one, Palm Beach, Florida. Okay, so we got Palm Beach. And here the estimated audience size of people within the top 5% income earners who like horses is between 187,000 and 220,000. So, okay, a huge number more than Aiken, right? Aiken was less than 1,000. And here we're talking, you know, somewhere around 200,000, right? So, wow, Palm Beach, a lot of rich people in Palm Beach. Now, when you think about the kind of stores they have there and, you know, fancy restaurants, et cetera, like, okay, that kind of makes sense, right? Palm Beach tends to, you know, cater a lot, or, you know, the greater Palm Beach area to a very upscale audience. So that makes sense when you think about it that way. Let's go to Naples, Florida, another high-end city in Florida. So definitely quite a few people there, not as much as Palm Beach, anywhere near. Palm Beach, remember, was around 200,000. So here we're looking at around 63,000 to 74,000-ish. Still a good size audience, but not nearly as many as Palm Beach. And I will say, as we're going through this, what I've noticed with the horse farm clients I've had is, you know, the more wealthy people, the better, right? For sure. If you can get at least 100,000, if you're in an area with at least 100,000, then for farms in areas like that, I usually find that they have a wait list for their riding programs. Under that, even, you know, a farm that basically has, like, you know, the similar facilities and similar level of training or horses, right? So, you know, sort of apples to apples comparison. Farms in areas that have less than 100,000 people in this top 5% income cohort that like horses. And I don't see any of them having wait lists, right? They really have to pretty actively market to get new customers. Not that it's impossible. They do it and they do well, but once you hit like 100,000 people, if you're in an area with around 100,000 people in that top 5%, then all of a sudden your marketing just starts to become really easy. You almost don't even have to do marketing, and you will have a wait list of clients. They just kind of come to you. So I just wanted to mention that. So let's go up here to Fort Lauderdale, similar to Palm Beach, but little further south. Okay, so we're up. Palm Beach, Palm Beach was around 200,000. So now we're up to around 262,000 to 308,000. So let's say 300,000. So, okay, Fort Lauderdale, we're liking that. Just a lot, it's like shooting fish in a barrel when you're doing your marketing in an area with this many wealthy people. Like, that sounds like that would be really easy to do. Put it that way. Vienna, Virginia. This is a town right outside Washington, D.C. Here again, right, somewhere in the 300,000, 333,000 range, right, of wealthy people. And I know a couple farms that I've worked with in this area around Washington or in Washington, D.C. And both of them have wait lists. They do no advertising. They don't do marketing. They have websites, but they don't have to do marketing because they literally have a wait list of 30 or 40 or 50 people for riding lessons. And neither of them really does sale horses. So, but I think that it would be very similar in that situation. It's just, obviously it's easier to sell when you've got a lot of rich people around, because selling horses, even if it's riding lessons or horses themselves or whatever, it takes money. And so you got to talk to people with money. Otherwise, they might love the horses, but they can't buy them. They just can't. Okay, New York City, 1.2 million. Remember you might not have seen this video. In another video that I did the other day, I mentioned that New York City has the highest number of millionaires anywhere in the world. And I think that is shown right here by the fact they have 1.2 million to 1.4 million people in the top 5% of income earners. Now, some people might go, hey, but that's New York City. Everything costs like 4 times as much as, where I live, wherever that is. That is true. So, you do have to take that into consideration, that money does not go as far in places like New York City, or a lot of these wealthy areas, to be honest, are typically more expensive to live in than to, in a lower income area where everything's less expensive. But I will say that my observation, I've worked with well over 100 horse farms around the country with their marketing and their advertising, their Facebook advertising. And consistently, I see that the ones in wealthier areas just have massively, like 100 times easier times doing their marketing and getting customers. There's a lot to be said. I think this is why they put, really nice high-end stores in wealthy areas, because that's where the people are that can afford the nice stuff. And you don't find, Saks Fifth Avenue in Warner, New Hampshire, where I was from for 40 years, because it's a nice middle income town, but it's, they just wouldn't be able to sustain a lovely store like that. And the same thing goes for a horse farm. Basically, a horse farm is just a retail location, if you think about it like that. Not a breeding farm necessarily. But, when you're selling something, if you're selling horses or you're selling riding lessons, you're selling camps, you're a retail location. And so you have to sort of obey all the rules that any retail store would obey. And certainly location is definitely one of those rules. So New York City area, 1.2 million. And yes, I know you can't have like necessarily a horse farm inside New York City, although I did actually visit one that was inside New York City once, over in Brooklyn. But yes, so you would have to be like close to that area, right? You would be outside New York, which, why you see a lot of really nice horse farms near New York City. Okay, let's go to Ocala, Florida, which is the area where I live now. And we see, interestingly, below 1,000 for the top 5% income earners. So you're like, that's interesting, because the World Equestrian Center's here. Well, that is true. And certainly it's an amazing place to have a farm, amazing grass, pastures. Oh my goodness gracious. Like, what a place to have horses. However, nonetheless, it still is not a very high income area overall. And although there's obviously some massively wealthy people here, but there's not a whole lot of them. So much harder, I think, in general, to sell horses from a farm here in this area than it would be, let's say, near New York City or near, Fort Lauderdale, areas where there are just a whole lot more people with money that could afford to purchase horses. Now, again, okay, caveat. If you're an already established breeder or horse farm and you have clients flying in from around the world, which certainly those places exist, then your location makes a lot less of a difference. Nonetheless, you would still probably sell a lot more horses if you were near a, very wealthy area. But can you survive and do well, in a place like Ocala? Yeah, sure, of course, it happens all the time. But is that optimal for you? Eh, you know, I would argue probably it's not actually if you're talking about selling things like riding lessons or horses or camps or whatever. So, something to think about. A lot of people will be like, "Oh, I can't believe you said that." Well, I don't know. All I'm looking at is at the data, and if somebody can argue against that, please do. I'm always happy to, listen to other thoughts and arguments and ideas. But from what I can see and in my experience working with hundreds of farms around the country is being in a high end area is really crucial to success. Um, okay, Gainesville, Florida, a little north of Ocala. So a little bit more population there. So you've got, around 2,600 tops of people in that top 5%. So good, but not like the 100,000, right? Which is kind of the cutoff I've seen where marketing just gets like ridiculously easy. In fact, you really kind of don't have to do marketing. You should still do marketing. Coca-Cola does marketing. Everybody should do marketing, but it gets like a million times easier in the nice areas. So if you're around Gainesville, could you have a successful lesson program? Yeah, honestly, it would be hard. Um, under 50,000. If this number's under 50,000, certainly possible. And but it just gets a lot harder. It's on a scale, right? So it's not impossible. But if I were looking for a place to put a farm and I saw this, I would be like, oh, no, thank you. That's like, why am I making it harder on myself than I have to? So that would not be an area that I would be wanting to locate my place. Now, if you're already there, right? You have a lovely farm or it's a farm your family's been in or whatever, can you make a successful business? Sure, absolutely. It's just going to be a lot harder, but not impossible. Okay, the Villages, which is down the road a little south here of Ocala, and kind of similar to Gainesville, right? 2,100 to 2,400. So again, this is I'm talking top 5%. I'm talking for basically this is really people that can purchase horses. That would be my cutoff. Would be the top 5%. Very lowest. Um, so yeah, you could sell some. Now, not all of these people are going to buy a horse, right? Like even though they like horses, they still, you know, that's not how it works. So you're not going to sell 2,100 horses to these people. I mean, maybe you can. If you can, great. I would like to meet you. Um, but you'll get some percentage of this. So again, not impossible, not bad, but not amazing either, in my opinion. Orlando, okay, Orlando, Florida, a little further down. Okay, 52,000 to 62,000 in that area. So that's kind of, you can build a nice business here for like lesson clients or sale horse clients. And not too difficult. You do have to do some marketing. It's effort, but it's certainly quite doable. It definitely gets easier as you hit, that 50,000 mark. A lot easier than, those when you get to like the under 1,000, that gets really hard. Again, not impossible, but yeah, it's just you got to be really creative and innovative to make that work is my experience. And here's one last one. St. Petersburg, Florida. um, within 25 miles, about 90,000 to 105,000. I had a client here that had, again, a wait list of like 30, 40 people. They didn't do any advertising. They'd never done any advertising. They were just there in St. Pete with a farm, and um, just didn't have to advertise because there were so many people coming to them for riding lessons that, just easy. So yeah, so that's been my experience. And I've been lucky to work with so many farms, and lucky that Facebook exists, because 30 years ago I couldn't have said all this probably, because this kind of data didn't really exist, but it does now. So yeah, so that's kind of the long and short of it. Oh, I was going to show you how to set this up. I forgot. Okay, so it's really super easy. So if you like, okay, well, I want to see what's in my area. So go over to the blue Create Audience button, and then go down to Saved Audiences and click that. And then you're going to name your audience. So I would name it like your city. So let's say New London, New Hampshire, plus 25 miles. I went to school in New London, New Hampshire when I was a kid, so that's why I'm picking it. And it's a nice area, but it's very sparsely populated, so I'm just curious to see how it does. Let's see, top 5% income. So you give it a name that's really descriptive like this, so that when you come back in a month or two, you'll know what the heck this was about. And then like sources. Okay, so that's easy enough. And then you scroll down here and you'll see where it says United States, where we're going to just do one location, New London, and you have to spell out the state, New Hampshire. There we go. And you can see it says city. You want to find the one that says city. So if you're in a really small town, sometimes those don't come up, and then you need to pick like the closest town to your area, which is fine. It should be close enough for this kind of a thing. But usually you can find your town by just typing out the words the full way. And when I did like St. Pete, instead of St. Pete or St. Petersburg, I had to write out Saint, Saint Petersburg. So if you're in a place that's got a name like that, you may have to write it a different way. But all the location, pretty much all the locations are in here. So yeah, so it shows New London, New Hampshire, 25-mile radius. Okay. I leave all this stuff the same. Just don't touch anything. Just come all the way to the bottom, detailed targeting. So this very at the bottom. And then we're going to put in horses. So the first thing we're going to look for are people that like horses. And you want to pick this one. It says horses, and then in parentheses it says animals. That's the one. Don't pick any of these other things. Just pick horses and then animals. And then what you want to do, don't put in your other criteria here. You want to narrow the audience. Otherwise, you're just adding together horses and then also the other thing. You want to hit narrow audience. So that's really, really, really important. Otherwise, you will not get correct data. So you're going to hit narrow audience, and then you're going to go here and you're going to put in top 5%. Type that in, and then scroll down a little bit, and you'll get household income, top 5% of zip codes, and you're going to click that, and then you're going to hit create saved audience. Okay, and so here I have the new one that I just made, so I'm going to click that, and it shows up on the right, New London, Okay, 6,400 to 7,600. So that's not a surprise. That's kind of what I expected, because as I mentioned, it's not very densely populated area. So while it's very upscale, there just aren't a lot of people there. So, to have a farm in New London, New Hampshire, could you have a nice riding facility with some nice clients and sell some horses for good money? Absolutely. I used to do it when I lived there. Sold horses up to about $100,000, and that was in the 1980s. So yeah, it's certainly possible, but is it easy? Like, is that the easiest place to do it? Probably not. Like, if I were looking to build a farm somewhere or buy a farm somewhere, would I be like, yeah, New London, New Hampshire is the place I want to be? That's not what I would pick, unless you have, obviously, unless there were some other compelling reason to be there. So this is not an impossible place, but it would not be an optimal place either, I think, to have a farm, even though it's a very beautiful upscale town. It's gorgeous there. So anyhow, if it were me, I would be looking probably at a place in the Fort Lauderdale area, because that's very, very high end, or around New York City if you like the snow. I don't like the snow, so I would pick someplace. Or you could do what a lot of farms do, which is to have a place, up north, like around New York, and then in the winter you come down to Florida. Well, why do you think there's the whole circuit, right, that goes that way? That there's a reason that this is where a lot of the really big successful horse farms are have those locations, or around Washington D.C., right? Around money. I mean, that's just the name of horses are expensive. You got to be around money if you're going to play the game, especially if you're going to do sale horses of any substantial amount. You just need people with money. So, all right, that's kind of it for now. If you have any questions, always just send me an email or text me or call me 203-893-3365. Always happy to help out. I know a lot of people get stuck on a lot of the tech part. That's probably the biggest thing. So, I can help, or one of the folks that I work with, we have people here that can help out on the tech side. And, if anybody wants to call about our masterminds that we do during the week to get, sort of groups of people together to talk about horses and horse business, it's all marketing, business innovation kind of thing. Just again, shoot me a text or email, and happy to talk to you, try to help work with you to grow the horse business. And we don't charge for every little thing. Obviously we have to charge for some things, but like initial calls or whatever, I'm happy to do those for free at this point. So don't hesitate to reach out, and happy to help you as much as I can.